Some of the hardest people to get over are the ones who never fully chose you. Not the ones who loved you clearly and then left. Not the ones who showed up fully and then broke your heart in an honest way. Very often, the ones who stay in your body the longest are the ones who gave you almost something. Almost love. Almost commitment. Almost clarity. Almost a relationship. Almost enough to make you believe that if you just held on a little longer, understood a little more, stayed a little softer, or waited through one more confusing phase, it would finally become real. And that is exactly what makes these dynamics so hard to leave. Because your body does not get attached only to what is real. It can get deeply attached to what keeps almost becoming real. That is the trap. When someone never really chose you, but gave you enough warmth, enough chemistry, enough moments, enough softness, enough signs that something deep was there, your nervous system can get locked into a cycle that feels a lot like love and acts a lot like addiction. Not because you are weak, not because you are dramatic, but because inconsistent reward is one of the strongest hooks the human body can experience. When care is inconsistent, when affection comes and goes, when closeness is followed by distance, when signs of love show up without the structure of love, the body does not settle. It starts chasing. It starts watching. It starts hoping. It starts learning that relief might be coming, but never in a stable way. And that is what makes almost love feel so hard to leave. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. The first thing we need to say very clearly is this: difficulty letting go is not proof that the relationship was deep, healthy, or meant to be. Sometimes it is proof that the pattern was unstable enough to hook your nervous system. That distinction matters, because many people spend years treating their inability to move on as evidence that the bond must have been special. But sometimes what was special was not the love. It was the way your body got conditioned inside uncertainty. That is a very different thing. When someone chooses you clearly, there is pain if it ends, of course, but there is also reality. There is something defined to grieve. There is something real that existed in the open. There is something the body can eventually process because it was actually held in form. When someone never really chooses you, the pain often feels even harder because you are not only grieving what was, you are grieving what could have been. You are grieving what kept almost happening. You are grieving the story your body never got permission to finish. That unfinished quality creates a different kind of attachment. It keeps the mind and body circling because they are not only trying to process loss, they are trying to process interrupted possibility. And interrupted possibility is one of the most addictive emotional states there is. It keeps the system leaning forward. It keeps part of you waiting for the next piece. It keeps your grief from fully closing because some part of the story still feels emotionally open. So let us break this down through signs plus capacity filter, because this is where people get lost. First, we will look at the signs that keep people emotionally hooked. Then we will run those signs through the real question that matters most, which is capacity. Not just what did they feel. Not just what did they say. Not just what moments happened, but what could they actually hold? What could they actually sustain? What could they actually build? Because signs without capacity are exactly how almost love becomes a trap. Let us start with the signs. The first sign that hooks people hardest is emotional contrast. This person may not be consistently available, but when they are present, they feel very present. Their warmth feels different from ordinary warmth. Their softness feels rare. Their attention feels loaded. Their affection feels like relief after tension. This is one of the biggest reasons people get stuck. Not because the person was always there, but because the moments when they were there felt unusually intense. The body starts organizing around contrast. Cold, then warm. Distant, then close. Silent, then sweet. Unclear, then suddenly intimate. That contrast does something powerful. It makes the warm moments feel bigger than they are because they arrive after deprivation. And once warmth arrives after deprivation, the body does not just enjoy it. It clings to it. It stores it. It replays it. It builds around it. That is the first sign. Not steady love. Contrast that creates a bigger hit. Contrast is one of the most underrated forces in attachment. When you have been cold, warmth feels hotter. When you have been starved, a crumb feels bigger. When you have been confused, even a small moment of clarity can feel life-changing. That is why people in these dynamics often defend the bond so hard. They are not only attached to the person, they are attached to what the contrast does in their nervous system. The second sign is selective intimacy. This is when someone gives you pieces of real closeness, but not in a form that becomes a stable relationship. Maybe they open up deeply in private. Maybe they say things that sound intimate. Maybe they have vulnerable moments. Maybe they hold you in a way that feels emotionally real. Maybe you have conversations that feel like the kind only two deeply connected people could have. Maybe they let you see a version of them that few people see. Maybe you feel chosen in those private moments, even though the larger structure never actually chooses you. These moments matter. They are not fake just because the person lacked capacity. But this is exactly why they hook you. Because they make the connection feel too real to dismiss. You think, this cannot be nothing. Nobody looks at someone like that for nothing. Nobody says that for nothing. Nobody shares that for nothing. And you are right in one sense. It is not nothing. But not nothing is not the same thing as enough. That is where people get trapped. They confuse the presence of real moments with the presence of real capacity. The third sign is interrupted progression. This is when the connection keeps almost moving forward and then stalling. It almost becomes exclusive. It almost becomes clear. It almost becomes honest. It almost becomes stable. There are moments where you think, now we are finally getting somewhere. And then something happens. The person pulls back. The energy changes. The contact drops. The clarity disappears. Then, after enough time, something warm happens again, and the whole process restarts. Interrupted progression is powerful because it keeps the future emotionally alive. The body never gets the clean message that this is not going anywhere. It keeps receiving maybe. And maybe is enough to keep people emotionally stuck far longer than a clean no ever would. Maybe is one of the most dangerous words in attachment because it keeps the nervous system invested without ever asking reality to fully deliver. It allows the bond to keep borrowing emotional energy from a future that never quite arrives. The fourth sign is relief-based bonding. This is when what feels like love is often your nervous system reacting to the return of contact after distress. They text back. They come closer. They act sweet again. They pull you in again. And what you feel in that moment is so intense that you call it love. But a lot of the intensity is relief. Relief that they are here. Relief that you are not losing them right now. Relief that the silence broke. Relief that the bond still exists. Relief is powerful. Relief can feel like devotion. It can feel like destiny. It can feel like the deepest longing in the world finally getting answered. But relief is not always a sign of healthy love. Sometimes it is a sign that the body has been living in threat and is flooding when the threat briefly lifts. That is a very different experience, even if it feels just as strong. A lot of people mistake the end of panic for the presence of love. They mistake the drop in fear for proof of safety. But safety is not the same as relief. Safety lasts. Relief spikes and fades. That difference matters. The fifth sign is private depth without public structure. This is one of the cruelest patterns. The connection feels very real in certain moments, but it does not have a shape you can stand on in ordinary life. There is chemistry. There is tenderness. There are loaded conversations. There are meaningful looks, words, nights, memories. But there is no steady structure around it. No clear choosing, no stable direction, no real holding. So the person exists strongly in your emotional world without fully existing in your actual life. That split keeps the bond feeling both real and impossible at the same time. And that is exactly the kind of tension the nervous system gets trapped in. It does not know whether to grieve or keep hoping. So it often does both. It is hard to let go of something that feels intimate in private, but unreal in public. It leaves the body unsure of what to trust. Now let us take all of those signs and run them through the capacity filter, because this is where everything changes. Capacity asks different questions. Not, did it feel real? Not, did they seem affected? Not, did we have chemistry? Not, did they come back? Capacity asks, what can this person consistently hold? Can they hold clarity? Can they hold closeness? Can they hold your needs without treating them like pressure? Can they hold emotional truth without disappearing? Can they hold the ordinary reality of a relationship, not just the intense moments? Can they stay steady once the fantasy becomes responsibility? Can they remain present after tenderness? Can they tolerate your reality without turning it into a burden? Can they show up when there is no romantic high, carrying the moment for them? This is where many almost love dynamics collapse. Because the signs are there, the feeling is there, the moments are there, but the capacity is missing. And when signs are strong and capacity is weak, the result is one of the most addictive relational experiences possible. Why? Because your body keeps receiving enough evidence that something real exists, but never enough stability to settle. It has to keep reaching for the next sign, the next warm moment, the next text, the next eye contact, the next return, the next proof that what you felt was not imagined. That is how intermittent reinforcement works in love. You do not get fed enough to feel safe. You get fed enough to stay attached. And that difference matters so much. Let us talk more directly about why the ones who give you the least can hook you the most. It is not because crumbs are secretly better than real love. It is because the nervous system gets conditioned by uncertainty. Real love can feel calm, steady, almost quiet after chaos. But intermittent reinforcement creates spikes. Spikes of hope, spikes of fear, spikes of relief, spikes of longing. The body starts living from spike to spike, and once it learns that pattern, calm can even feel empty by comparison. That does not mean calm is wrong. It means your system got trained to expect intensity as proof of meaning. So when someone never fully chooses you but keeps giving you signs, your body may attach not only to them, but to the cycle itself. The waiting, the reward, the confusion, the relief, the setback, the return. That cycle becomes emotionally alive. It becomes familiar. It becomes a place your body knows how to live in, even while it is suffering there. This is why people can feel deeply loyal to dynamics that are hurting them. The pain is real, but the pattern is also familiar. Familiarity has gravity. Another reason these dynamics feel so addictive is that they often wound identity as much as attachment. When someone never fully chooses you, part of the pain is not just losing them. It is trying to understand what their inconsistency says about you. If they felt so much, why not choose me? If the chemistry was real, why not claim me? If the tenderness happened, why not hold me? If I mattered, why was I still left in uncertainty? This can keep people hooked because the bond starts to feel like the place where their worth will finally get answered. If the person comes back, chooses you, finally commits, then maybe the whole story changes. Maybe then the pain makes sense. Maybe then you get your answer. This is why almost love is so hard to leave. You are not only leaving the person, you are leaving the hope that this story will someday repair what it damaged in you. That is a very deep thing to grieve. But it is also why the capacity filter matters so much. Because no person who lacks the capacity to choose you clearly can become the place where your worth gets repaired. They may affect your wound. They may trigger your wound. They may intensify your wound. But they cannot heal what they keep reopening through inconsistency. Let us make this even more practical. How do you know you are in an intermittent reinforcement dynamic and not just a complicated but healthy connection? Here are the signs. You spend more time interpreting than enjoying. You get more relief from small signs than safety from steady behavior. Your body feels hyper-alert after warm moments instead of calm. You keep waiting for the relationship to become what the moments already seem to promise. You feel more attached after distance, not less. You are constantly trying to understand the gap between how real it feels and how little it actually holds. You feel like the relationship lives more in your nervous system than in your actual life. You feel thrown off more often than settled. Those are signs. Now run those signs through capacity. Are they clear? Are they consistent? Are they available in a way that survives ordinary life? Can they keep showing up once things become real? Does their behavior build trust over time, or does it only restart hope over and over? That is the filter. Because someone can feel deeply and still lack the capacity to love well. Someone can miss you and still not choose you. Someone can be drawn to you and still not have the structure to build anything safe. That is why signs alone are not enough. In fact, signs without capacity are often exactly what keeps you addicted. Now let us talk about why people often confuse almost love with deep love. Deep love is not only intensity. It is not only chemistry. It is not only being moved. Deep love has holding in it. It has steadiness in it. It has enough structure to let your body rest. Almost love often has strong feeling without strong holding. It can have intensity, longing, tenderness, attachment, even real care, but it does not have enough stability to let the connection become safe. So what you experience is not the peace of being chosen. It is the hunger of almost being chosen. That hunger can feel more consuming than real love precisely because it is unfinished. Your body keeps leaning toward the completion it never gets. That is what makes it so hard to release. Another hard truth. Sometimes what you miss most is not actually the person. It is the emotional charge of the cycle. You miss the hope, the anticipation, the possibility, the sudden warm moments, the way one little sign could change your whole emotional weather. That does not mean the person meant nothing. It means your attachment may now include the pattern itself. And if the pattern is part of the addiction, then healing is not only about getting over them. It is about withdrawing from the cycle. That is why calm can feel strange after almost love. Calm does not give your body the same spikes. It does not create the same chase. It does not keep your nervous system on edge, waiting for the next hit of contact. At first, that can feel boring or flat. But flat is not always bad. Flat may be your body discovering life outside the cycle. Stay there long enough, and flat often becomes peace. The nervous system has to learn that peace is not emptiness. Peace is not absence. Peace is not lack of depth. It is what happens when the body no longer has to keep earning its next breath through signs. Now let us talk about the emotional logic that keeps people stuck. It often sounds like this. If it hurts this much, it must have been important. If I cannot let go, it must have been real. If I still want them this badly, it must mean they are the one person I am not supposed to lose. If I am still this attached, there must be some deeper truth here. But emotional intensity is not always a truth teller. Sometimes it is a nervous system teller. Sometimes it is telling you how conditioned, deprived, uncertain, and activated the body became. That matters, but it is not the same as destiny. This is where the capacity filter protects you again. Instead of asking only, how much did I feel, it asks, what was actually possible here? What could this person actually hold? What did they actually sustain? What did the connection become over time, not just in moments? This shift is huge. It moves you out of fantasy and into pattern, out of longing and into evidence, out of chemistry and into structure. That is what slowly breaks the grip. And if you are listening and thinking, but the signs were real, I know, that is why it hurt. This is not about pretending the moments did not matter. This is not about insulting your perception. Very often, the signs were real. The chemistry was real. The tenderness was real. The effect was real. But real signs do not automatically equal real capacity. That is the whole point. The painful part is not that you imagined something from nothing. The painful part is that you felt something real that still could not become safe. That is a much harder grief. Because then you are not grieving fantasy. You are grieving reality without structure. You are grieving a connection that touched something in you, but could not hold what it touched. That hurts deeply. But if you do not tell the truth about the missing capacity, you will keep using the realness of the signs to excuse the emptiness of the structure. And that is how the cycle stays alive. Let us also say something about self-blame, because almost love creates a lot of it. Many people think they got hooked because they loved too hard, wanted too much, or failed to be secure enough. But people do not get trapped only because they care deeply. They get trapped because inconsistent emotional reward is powerful. Because mixed signals are powerful. Because selective intimacy is powerful. Because uncertainty keeps the body engaged. Because the brain hates unfinished things and keeps circling what never became clear. Because people are built to want unfinished things to finally make sense. You are not broken because this hooked you. You are human. But being human does not mean staying confused forever. At some point, healing asks for a different question. Not, what did they feel for me? But, what could they actually do with what they felt? Not, how real were the signs? But, how strong was the capacity? Not, how much did I want this? But, what did this actually become? That is the move. If you are the avoidant or inconsistent one listening, and you know you gave signs without being able to truly choose, this matters too. Giving someone real moments without real holding does have an impact. You may have meant those moments. You may have felt a lot, but if you could not sustain the reality of what you were waking up in them, then the bond was still left unstable. Feeling deeply does not cancel the cost of inconsistency. This is why people can be haunted by relationships that were never fully defined. The body was never given a safe ending. It was just given recurring activation. And activation without safety leaves residue. So, how do you start getting free from someone who never really chose you? First, stop using the intensity of the attachment as proof that the connection was healthy. Second, let yourself name the signs honestly, but run them through capacity every time. Yes, the moments were real. Could they hold them? Yes, the chemistry was strong. Could they sustain it? Yes, they came back. Did they come back differently? Yes, they cared. Could they choose? These questions matter. Third, grieve not only the person, but the possibility, the almost, the maybe, the imagined future, the version of the story your body kept trying to finish. That grief is real. Fourth, pay attention to what your nervous system now calls love. If it still calls spikes, uncertainty, and crumbs love, then part of the work is retraining your body to recognize steadiness as meaningful. Fifth, stop calling a lack of capacity a mystery you must solve. Sometimes the answer is simply that they could not hold what they woke up in you. That is sad, but it is not a puzzle you have to spend years decoding. It is information, and information can free you if you let it. The deepest shift here is this. You do not get free by pretending the connection meant nothing. You get free by telling the truth about what it was and what it was not. It was meaningful. It was affecting. It was real in parts. And it was still not enough. It touched you deeply, and it still did not become safe. You were not crazy to feel it, and you still cannot build a life on signs that never became structure. That is the adult heartbreak in all of this. But it is also what finally leads out. Because once you stop measuring love only by signs and start measuring it by capacity, a lot of things become painfully clear. And painful clarity is still cleaner than addictive confusion. Real love may hurt when it ends, but almost love can keep hurting because it never fully begins. That is why it feels so hard to leave. But once you understand the pattern, you can stop worshiping the signs and start protecting your nervous system from what the lack of capacity keeps doing to it. And that is when almost love starts losing its throne. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.